Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mommy Podcast. I am your host, Kelly Dinning, and today we are getting into cesarean good to knows. If you've had a cesarean birth or you are planning on having one coming up, there are some things that are good to know, and I almost want to say must knows, but I mean, I didn't know them. It would have been great to know them, and I wanted to share what I learned from my experience personally with a cesarean for the first birth that I had of my daughter. So, getting right into statistics, the CDC National Center for Health Statistics in 2021 said that there are about 1.2 million cesarean births performed in the US every year. And a lot of people, I think, have a misconception about what a cesarean birth actually entails. I know some people think it's kind of an easier way to have a baby, and I'm sure in a lot of senses you could say that. However, it also comes off as something that can be a very scary way to have a baby, especially if you've had an emergency cesarean or you weren't planning on having a C-section. You were thinking the whole time, you're doing your Lamaze courses and you're going to have a vaginal birth, and then ta-da, that's out of your control. Circumstances happened and now you're having a cesarean. Well, welcome to my experience. My first daughter was completely frank breech, which is basically sitting like a little Buddha in my belly with her legs up right in front of her. And she didn't move the entire pregnancy. She was happy there. We tried every method, medical and holistic, to try to flip her, and absolutely nothing worked. So I ended up going from my idea of I'm going to have a drug-free vaginal birth, all of this kind of stuff, doing the Lamaze courses with my husband, to then realizing in the weeks leading up to her due date that I was having a scheduled cesarean. I was undergoing a big surgery, and I started looking into all of the things that happen in a surgery. I was lucky enough to know what it kind of looks like, I guess, and understand some of the anatomy from my nursing background. I actually watched a cesarean birth in the same OR that I had my daughter, so I had a pretty good idea of what would happen, but I didn't have a good idea of what I should expect as now being the patient, and what my long-term recovery would be, what my future pregnancies could look like now that I've had a cesarean birth. And so with a cesarean birth, there are a lot of scary things that are out of your control. I mean, you have to go in, you have to get numbed, and I got a spinal tap. I was terrified of that because, you read about the minimal, minute risks that you could be paralyzed forever if something goes wrong. There are circumstances where people actually don't make it on the operating table. Things can happen. It's a major surgery. So all of that stuff is going through your head. Basically, I wanted to say that a cesarean birth is more or less out of your control. And now I remember talking to other moms, or pre-moms, I guess, people that weren't moms yet, that were talking about, oh, I'd love to have a cesarean birth because then I can go in and I can have a quick surgery. I can make sure I don't feel any of that contraction pain. I don't go through any of that mess. And hey, I save my vagina in the end. Isn't that fantastic? And I get this cute, clean little scar and I move on. Well, there's a lot more to it. And a lot of what I just said, if you've had a cesarean birth, is not correct and not true at all. You, in fact, do not save your vagina. Your pregnancy, holding a growing baby, pushing down on your pelvic floor, carrying all that extra weight, that is what is doing a lot of the change, which some people would call damage, down there. That has to be recuperated, that has to be strengthened in postpartum exercises and things like that. And that's not something you just skip if you've had a cesarean. And another point to that is you don't essentially skip that, because when you're cutting through for a cesarean, through the surgery, if you've had one, you're aware you have 3 major incisions. So you have a horizontal incision somewhere just above your pubic bone. And then you will have a vertical incision going through your muscle tissue. And then you will have another horizontal incision going through your uterus, where you're going to meet your baby through there. So through all of that, you're cutting through 7 layers of tissue, And all of that is connected to your pelvic floor. And what is your pelvic floor? Well, it's your vagina. It's everything down there. So no, you are not saving anything. You're going through a massive trauma, just like you would with vaginally birthing a baby. And there are some things to be aware about. So that's why I'm doing this episode, because I felt like, in the beginning, it was more like an appointment. I was going in, it was pretty cold, sterile environment, pretty, a little scary, I would say. Like, it was a little scary. I had all these thoughts going through my head of what if, I have the surgeon that's going to retire next week and I'm his last surgery ever and he doesn't really care. And, I had all these thoughts going through my head. And, what if something goes wrong? And what if there's a complication and something affects my baby? And it's like the most terrifying feeling ever because it is out of your control. Now, going through that, a little bit of preface about my experience with a cesarean and kind of going through a little bit of the anatomy of how significant that surgery actually is. You're going through a huge operation. And if you look up on your own, which I'm sure a lot of new moms do, what to expect of a cesarean. And you're going to read things that are kind of going to blow your mind because it's not what you expect. It's not, you have this little incision and things move on. You have your baby. You kind of forget about it. Everything heals up and you're fine. Well, no. If you actually read about it, if you even type into Google and read the basics of what to expect after a cesarean, there's a lot of scary things. And to get into the facts about some of these scary things, the AAFP, American Family Physician, put out an article basically stating that these are the complications that can happen from having a cesarean birth. So you could have endometriosis down the road. You could have wound separation. You could be more prone to UTIs. You could have GI complications because you think about it, they're in there, they're moving stuff around, and you're having a surgery and you're hoping that everything kind of goes back together in a way that it was, but your body is not in that current state in a way that it was. You are larger, you are swollen, you are at the point of giving birth to a baby. That is not your pre-baby body. So everything is getting put back together with hopes that it's all going to go back into healing and shrinking together. Now, a little bit of a rant there, but you can get blood complications, be more prone to things like DVTs and blood clots. You can have lower abdominal pain. A lot of people apparently experience back pain and painful intercourse. Why? Because your pelvic floor is involved. So there are some major things to be aware of, which I didn't know going into this. I knew the part about healing your wound, about taking care of the dressings on that for the time that you're in the hospital in the postpartum unit. And then that's kind of where my knowledge ended. So I started learning then about being the patient, being on the other side of the room. That was the part that kind of really rocked my world and rocked it in a way that, one, I kind of felt like I missed a big portion of learning, or I felt a little cheated that no one ever told me that there's things that you should be doing after having a baby. I mean, I think it's more universal that people tell you, you need to be doing Kegels before your baby. You need to be doing Kegels after your baby. But I never heard, nor did I ever learn until I had it, after you have a cesarean section, you need to be doing scar massage. And I had never heard about that for a C-section. It's something that if you have an injury and you have a major scar, you're massaging that scar, you're loosening up that tissue again so that it can move flexibly and beautifully like it did before. But I didn't really think about that for a cesarean section. And the more significant part of that is that there's so many layers that are attached in there. So it's a deeper experience. It's not just the superficial layers. It's getting deep into movement. It's getting your body to be flexible again and feeling that confidence again that, hey, I'm recovered. I'm not feeling pain. I'm not feeling numbness. I'm not feeling like there's this foreign part of my body that has this incision that's healing and I don't know what to do about it. So saying all of that, I am so grateful to my best friend that had had a cesarean birth a couple of years before me. And I was talking to her about all of these postpartum thoughts that I was having about this incision, how I was not feeling super great. It was a lot of pain. I was not feeling strong in myself. And she said, oh, well, you need to sign up for a perinatal therapy course and you need to start doing scar massage. And she was the person that introduced me to this. And thankfully, through her, I found a course, which I will link in the show notes. It's Jeanette Yee's perinatal therapy course, where I was able to do this from home, albeit it was kind of in the COVID era, but I do believe all of her courses are still online and you can join live and you can go through this session in a whole bunch of different varieties, whatever is attuned to you, of recovering that area of your body so that you are not feeling tension, you're not feeling foreign parts of your body. It will feel like you have recovered fully and you have recovered healthily so that if you're having a baby in the future, you know that you can do that to the best of your ability and you did everything that you can to heal correctly. And one more thing on that I just wanted to say is if you've had one cesarean, you have the option of trying for a VBAC. So it's a vaginal birth after cesarean. Now you'll be in a higher risk category. And the reason I'm saying this is because I was in that category. My second daughter was a VBAC. I was in a higher risk. I had to be followed closely by an OB to make sure everything went right and there were no complications again. And now if you have the opportunity to have it, I would say go for it if you can, if you want that. Because if you don't, at least in Canada, with our healthcare standards, if you've had 2 cesarean births, you are no longer eligible to try to have a vaginal birth safely in most institutions where an OB is going to be delivering your baby. So if you have the opportunity to try, heal your body, try to have a vaginal birth, it opens up the door to have both experiences. Now, sometimes if you've had an emergency cesarean, I totally understand the circumstances are different. You might not be advised to try for a VBAC, and I have heard that from many people. I'm just sharing some knowledge on that because I did not really consider that. I just thought, oh, I will try to have a vaginal birth. And then you start having all those thoughts and fears and you're pregnant and you're hormonal and you're thinking, oh, if I can't do it, I have to cut through old scar tissue and it's going to be this major surgery again and I'm going to have a hard time getting out of bed and blah, 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 blah. So those were things that were going through my head. Just wanted to share that if you weren't aware of that, if you've had a cesarean, you do have the option to try to have a vaginal birth in most cases. And if you successfully do it, you can have vaginal births after that. If you don't, then you're kind of on the cesarean route, which either or, beautiful way to bring in a baby into this world, and neither is better or worse. And I can say that because I've had both, and they were both radically different experiences. Both had different positives and different negatives. And I'll get into that at the end of this episode and then more in the next one, where I'm talking about the vaginal birth, kind of good to know stuff. So now getting back to the incision, when you get home, you're not going to really see the incision for a couple of days. You're advised to keep your bandage on. I had a tremendous amount of bleeding, apparently. And I know this because while I was laying there, the blue sheet is up kind of so you can't see what's going on. I was seeing splatters of blood. I literally thought, like, what's going on down there? Did you guys hit something wrong? And am I bleeding out? And is everybody being so quiet for a reason? I had a tremendous amount of bleeding. Don't know why I didn't have surgery before, so wouldn't have known that. So I had almost like an overlapped skin incision. And I'm saying that because, I'm saying that in a very calm manner. And honestly, me 2.5 years ago, I was freaking out because after the 2 days, when you take off that bandage, and mine was blood soaked, it was awful. I was in the shower. I remember pulling off this bandage and looking down and being in tears. Just like, I thought I was hacked. How could you do such a bad job putting someone back together? It's supposed to be a clean line. It was supposed to be small. It's big. It's bumpy. It's bruised. It's yellow. It's black. There's blood everywhere. And it looks like the skin was overlapped. Talking about it, I'm just thinking back of wow, actually that was a pretty shocking moment. It was scary. My husband had to calm me down. And, that triggered this phone call to my friend of oh my goodness, please send me pictures of what yours looked like and how you were feeling after, because this is how I'm feeling and I'm freaking out. And anyways, what that led me to think is, things are not going to be connected inside cleanly and properly if this is what it looks like on the outside. So if you have had a cesarean birth, if you are a new mother that is going to go in and have a cesarean birth, don't Google photos of a cesarean scar, because the recent ones, there are none on Reddit. There are none of someone taking them 2 days postpartum, probably because people aren't thinking about that. So you're not getting an accurate picture of what the scar looks like. You're seeing these beautiful little picturesque scars that are flat and clean and so light that you can't even really see them. And that made me feel even worse, because I was comparing probably a scar that has existed for 3 or 4 years to my scar that was 2 or 3 days old. So if I can give any advice, don't look at the incision. And if you look at it, don't compare it to anything for the first 2 days. Just leave it alone. Now, there is a lot of work that you have to do on your incision once it's healed and there's no scab. Now, Jeanette Yee's perinatal therapy course has the timelines and everything about when you can actually get your hands on that scar. And when I say get your hands on it, it's kind of creepy. If you've had a cesarean, you know what I mean? You almost don't want to touch it. It's like, it feels like you're going to hurt yourself, like things are going to separate and you're freaked out and everything. I was very afraid to touch mine. So after my scab was gone, I could start working at it. And the reason I say work at is because you're kind of like a massage therapist with your fingers. You're rolling on it using the palms of your hands. Again, something you would do through a course. That, I mean, you can also find videos on YouTube of basic cesarean scar massage. But this tissue that you have now is super tight because you have all of these incisions inside. So think about what I said before. You have those 3 major incisions. So you have 3 sets of scars. Because some people I've noticed will say, I feel this weird kind of pain under my belly button and down. It's like, yeah, because there's another incision underneath there that's going vertically, because all you're seeing from the top is that horizontal incision that's right above your pubic bone. So when you are moving this tissue around, the idea is that you are trying to loosen it up so that you can have proper healing, so that your tissue can roll. Just like anywhere in your body, you grab, natural tissue that doesn't have a scar and it rolls. It kind of floats over itself. You can lay on the ground and you can pull yourself forward and your skin kind of gives a little bit, stretches. After you've had a cesarean, it's kind of like a zipper. It's a super tight line. Mine felt like a piece of wire underneath it. And I noticed some physical things with it that I didn't love. It was because it was so tight. You have to think about when you first have your postpartum body, your uterus is still shrinking, and you also have this skin that has been stretching for 9 months. So this skin is going to take a while to contract, to come back to what it was, to regain that elasticity. And then you have this super tight brand new incision and all of that skin on top. So most moms and most things that I read were saying you're going to have a speed bump for the rest of your life. You're going to have this little pooch that hangs over your panty line kind of forever. And that kind of freaked me out, to be honest, because I like Lululemons. I like clothes that are tighter. And I thought, oh, I wonder if that means I'm never going to be able to wear a bathing suit comfortably because I'm going to have this little pooch that people are talking about. And, fair, you look in the mirror and you have it. I had it, especially early postpartum. And it makes sense that it's there. And this is talking about now, like more of the physical part of the scar and why you want to work on scar massage. It makes sense that it's there because it's holding everything together. It heals your body beautifully. It put everything back together. It's making sure that you are healing so you can have another baby in the future. However, it's super tight compared to all the skin around it. That skin used to be able to move freely. You could put your palms down there and just push back and forth and your skin would go. Now it doesn't. So with that deflating skin, that shrinking uterus above your incision, of course you're going to have a little pooch. Don't worry about that. And I know most moms don't worry about that in the first few weeks because that's not what your focus is. Your focus is on this beautiful little baby. However, down the road, if it is something you want to work on, working on your scar massage will diminish that bump. It gets it to the point where it's gone. I can confidently say, and I'm so proud of myself, that I don't have any line that you can visibly see. And I said before, I basically had overlapping skin because I was a bleeder so much. It was like, it looked more or less like a keloid scar at that point for me. Freaked me out. I thought this thing is never going to go down without future surgery to clean it up. But now it is flat. It is beautiful. It is lightening up and lightening up still. It's been 2.5 years and it's lightening up like crazy. The most important thing is I can grab it with my fingers and pull it up. Like I can pull the skin. I can lift the entire scar. I can move it around in my fingers and it doesn't hurt. Nothing snaps, crackles, pops anymore. It did when I first started. It was gross because you're kind of moving tissue. You're making sure you're not getting adhesions and things like that. So being able to pick up that skin and roll it is amazing because the initial period where you can't do that, it's very odd. The best word I have for it is it's very foreign. It doesn't feel like that's a part of your body anymore. And with all the pops and the pulls and everything, it's a very strange time. So after that period of doing the scar massage, I also noticed that I had kind of a patch, maybe the size of my palm, above my incision that was completely numb. They obviously cut through some nerve tissue and I had no feeling there. And I thought, oh, damn, I have now this part of my body that I can't even feel. And it was perfect before and it was healthy and I could feel everything. However, just another word of wisdom from a mother that's had one to hopefully a mother that's out there listening. You have a very long road ahead of you if you have any kind of nerve damage, but nerves regrow. They take forever to regrow. Helping move that tissue and roll it around will increase this process and speed it up, I'm sure. I no longer have any numbness. I have no pain with the incision from doing, I owe it all to that perinatal therapy course and sticking to it consistently. Now, the last thing I want to say, two last things I want to say. One, I never look down there. I'm never looking at it going, oh, there it is again, da da da. Like you forget about it. It's not a part of your body. In my world, it's not a part of my body that I looked at every day and was like, hey, that's a great piece of skin. You just don't look down there. That hasn't changed. I don't look down there. I often forget. And when I do see it, when I'm putting on a bathing suit or something, or when my daughter goes and points at it and says I have an owie or something, I like to think of it like my little power scar, like it's a Harry Potter superhero lightning bolt that I have from bringing a baby into this world and doing it healthily. And I was able to kind of coach my body into healing and making sure that I'm almost as good as I was before having the baby. And maybe I'm even stronger now. I don't know, if you had a competition of like who can stretch the furthest, maybe I would win because I have reinforced skin. I have no idea. So how often you look there is never in many worlds. So try to let that thought go out of your mind. Doing the massage makes it feel like it is your body again. And the last thing I want to say is just like exercise, you are not going to notice a difference in the appearance or generally the feeling of that scar for a while, just like exercise. If you go into the gym and you go and run 5K and then you go and do some arms and you look in the mirror, you're going to look exactly the same. It's the same thing with scar massage. It takes months. And it was even into my second pregnancy where you can't really massage because the skin is all stretching again, where that second pregnancy beautifully stretched more parts of the scar and helped get that tissue back to feeling normal. It was like a beautiful bonus to having extra internal stretching. Now, the benefits are paramount to your life, to all of those things that I mentioned before about the complications that can happen when you're not taking care of it, and how you can feel like it is your body again. You can feel like You're proud of it. It moves with you like it did before. And it's something that is totally in your control. Totally something you can do. Give it a year before you notice any comparison, before you look at the before and after. And I mean, you're going to notice the differences before that. You're going to feel the differences before that. However, be generous with yourself. You built a human being. You birthed a human being, and you did that beautifully. You should be so incredibly proud of yourself. Now, like I mentioned before, I will link Jeanette Yee's perinatal therapy course below and put that information in the show notes. So I hope you don't just have a good day. I hope you have an absolutely amazing day today as a mom, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me.